Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another Division video. It's been a little while, but today I am joined by two very special guests because we are going to talk about Division 1.7 mainly. Of course, the ETF is next week, the ETF for 1.7, and I unfortunately won't be able to go this time. I was invited, but the dates kind of clash again, which is rather unfortunate. This happened for the past 3 times, but I am joined by two very important members of the Division community who are also ETF members this time around, so they are going to become two of your important voices in trying to sort of, convey messages to the developers and whatnot. So I figured we have a little chat to talk about some of the stuff that we know right now, some of the stuff we're hoping to see, and also, of course, give you guys a chance to share some of your opinions. Of course, drop things down in the comments down below. We use this as a means to try and get your voice out there as well. So, speaking of that, starting off with BinaryNumb. I'm sure you guys know him very well now. He runs a large number of podcasts. I'll actually throw to him so I don't get the wrong details. But Binary, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, what's up, everybody? So yeah, most people know me as George or Binary or BinaryNumb on the DZR Discord. So I'll be sort of doing podcast out for Division, probably about a year now. So yeah, basically fundamentally a part of DZR. So I do a podcast on DZR Engage, which is like your every relative industry news on a weekly basis. I do a show called The Green Room, which is like where we interview content creators about what they do and how their job role works. And then I also do Stolen Signal Radio with Game with Weezer and Orange Eurosage as well, specifically around the Division, which is a live show. It's a live call-in show. It's a little bit different. So it's not really a podcast. It's where we open up basically our call to anyone in the community to come and join in and have sort of their say about the Division live on Twitch and YouTube.
Awesome. Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, thank you for joining me.
No, thank you.
And then in the blue corner, I often like to try and make it sound like it's a boxing match. We have Taylor, or Rxlyat, as you probably know as well, who has been covering the Division, obviously since the start, but has been making some incredible headway very recently. Been doing some really, really good work, and of course you've taken on the mantle for the vendor reset video recently. But how's things going with you? Thank you for joining me.
No, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. Obviously, yeah, like Arekkz said, I'm Rxlyat or Taylor. I've been making Division videos for about 8 months now, and sort of recently my channel's progressively got a bit more traction, and yeah, I was selected for ETF Charlie, which is again a massive honour of mine, and I'm going to try and do my very best for the community. Pretty much.
I'm sure you will. Yeah, no, you've been doing some incredible work, recently. I think one of the first videos I saw of yours, like when I kind of first discovered your channel, because I apologise, but I discovered you so late. But definitely, when you started sort of doing your sort of second wave series, the tutorial series, yes, was like a great way to kind of get people into the game. So yeah, really, really good work. So fair enough to say that for everyone listening and watching it or whatnot, we've obviously got some great voices, and both of these guys play not just Division, but they play a lot of games, which I always think is a really, really good thing. I think it's very important to have people that play, a wide range of games, because it kind of gives you a good perspective on, just the wider kind of issues and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's going to be like a really strong message. I don't necessarily know too many other people going to the ETF. I know 55 is going, but beyond that, I'm not too sure. Not sure if you guys know any of the other guys that are going, but
no, I've never heard of any of the other guys, actually.
Oh, okay,
fair enough. Embarrassing. Some of them are followers of me on Twitter.
I mean, it's not hard to keep track of everyone. I mean, I always feel bad when there's people that come up and I'm like, I really should know these people. It's just like the internet's a massive place, but it's gonna be great to meet them. I mean, have you guys ever had a chance to either meet the devs or kind of visit studios or anything before? Or
this is the first time in my life, apart from outside of work.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Exactly the same for me. This is a real first.
Awesome. Well, it's definitely going to be an exciting time. So I'm kind of gutted I couldn't go, but hey, maybe one day eventually, maybe I'll make 1.8. But anyway, right, let's get on to the topic at hand. So what we're going to do, we're going to very firstly kind of take a quick recap of what we know currently of 1.7 from what they've publicly announced. I'm hoping there's more to it, but the main 3 kind of tiers for 1.7 are, of course, seasons, this new vanity slot, and feats. So, of course, seasons, for those of you guys that might be a little bit out of the loop, are effectively limited time events where it's a playlist and they're going to be grouping missions into those playlists. So think story missions you've done before, but you'll then play them with modifiers, and then there'll be kind of leaderboards associated. It'll run for a season, and then, of course, there'll be loot tied to that. So, I'll start with you, Binary. What are your kind of like initial sort of thoughts on this?
I really like the idea of it. I think one of the biggest things for me is, I used to play the Division every day, and then I sort of step back, and I sort of only do the weekly sort of assignments.
Yeah,
now. And this just gives me another reason to not grind out Madison Square Garden 10 times a week.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Which it's great. One of my biggest things is getting like actual missions back into a weekly rotation, but obviously challenge and legendary. So if they can build something like that into there, that'd be fantastic. If you can get. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seasons. I like seasons in obviously Diablo. That's one. There's a few other games that I play that have seasons in them. So I think it's a great mechanic.
Yeah.
To keep people, whether it's they play every day or whether they just play a couple of hours a week. Depending on how long those seasons are, which is probably going to be the important timer. But yeah, I think brilliant.
Awesome. And Taylor, what about you?
Yeah, pretty similar. I actually covered seasons in Ghost Recon that they've just released.
Okay.
So I thought kind of they would be very similar things. And you can definitely see how it's going to work in the Division, and I think it's definitely going to bring sort of that activeness back to the game.
Okay.
You know, not just log on and then do a couple of things and then log back off. It's going to give you that reason to actually stay on it for a little bit longer, you know, have a bit more fun and challenge yourself, and maybe go down the different route of using different gear as well.
Yeah. I do like that. I mean, the thing they mentioned about the modifiers trying to sort of shift the meta. So if there's like a modifier 1 month where it's like close range focus, then you're going to be kind of leaning to your SMGs and shotguns. But then if there's like a week or a season where it favors like long range, then of course you're going to mix it up. So that's definitely I mean, I think my main concern with season was, I mean, I like the idea because there's definitely a load of missions out there that I've probably only done them the time that I completed the story and leveled my character up, and then since then, unless there's a reason for me to go back, I've never replayed them. So I do like the idea that bringing it back into the mix. I just feel like it's one of those things where, from what we've kind of been told of 1.7 right now, I mean, I appreciate, to manage expectations. I understand that they've said, 1.7 is not going to be the same kind of content that we've had before, so it's not going to be a huge thing. But I feel like, seasons with kind of the other stuff we're going to talk about in a second, in itself is probably not a huge amount of stuff. So my worry is that, is it gonna it'll keep the kind of active player base happy, but will it, or maybe kind of giving them things to do for a while, but is it going to bring people back? That's the main thing. That's the key
for it though. The key for it though would be the modifiers themselves, isn't it? Like you touched on.
Yeah.
It's whether they make it around a specific weapon type, or your limited ammo, or like the modifiers you have in Underground, or something where it changes, it forces you to change your game style. And then the loot is worthy at the end.
I suppose that's gonna be the important thing, right? If it's worth the loot, and also if it's like, I mean, they did talk about having exclusive things tied to season. So if there is stuff you can only get during that season, I mean, I could definitely, I suppose that would also kind of fit the. Yeah, exactly. And I think that would also fit the kind of current playstyle, right? Because even if we are in a position where we don't necessarily play it every single day, like we might have done beforehand, season is a great way to kind of hop in, get some stuff done, claim your loot, and then just bounce out until the next season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Do you think they're going to do the whole re-leveling from it though, like they do with Diablo or any others, where you have to start a new character each time? I don't think so. They won't get that complicated.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think that's a pretty big ask. I mean, depending on how much they introduce. I mean, to ask people to level a new character again, bear in mind, a lot of people, especially the hardcore guys that are playing every single day. I mean, a lot of them have got 4 characters, right? I mean, not that you necessarily need them, but a lot of them do have 4 characters for various different reasons, or whether it be loot mules and stuff. But to ask someone to kind of level a character again per season, I think that would be probably a little step too far. So I think, but I mean, again, if at least if it means you kind of you swap your gear, you swap your weapons, it could definitely be something interesting for sure. I guess the other thing that kind of ties into that, the other thing they mentioned was this sort of like new vanity slot. I mean, as someone that kind of likes customization, this is super exciting to me. They haven't said much about what it is, so like my speculation was that it might be sort of like an all up, not more than just sort of the kind of the t-shirts and gear you can wear, but I wonder if it might be like an all up kind of transmog style cosmetic where you can actually sort of take on the appearance of like cleaners or LMB or something like that. But I don't know if you guys have got thoughts on what it might be.
They're doing a lot of that sort of now with the vanity sets you can buy. So I think it could be completely different again. And it might even act as like sort of a prestige system where if you're in the hub or something and you see somebody with all of this like really cool gear on, then it might like introduce that sort of show off, you know?
Yeah, I do like that. That's one of the things that I love about like MMOs, right? Like you walk into kind of a town and you've got your massive armor that you've just got from the raid that you completed.
Yeah.
And then like you as like a new player, like I always used to do it in World of Warcraft when I first started playing, and I was like level 5, and I see this level 80 like Dread Knight walk past me. I'm like, what has he got? You inspect it. Yeah, I mean, I've always felt like the Division kind of needed that, right? Because even though you can have some really good gear, they're nothing like looks. And I appreciate it's going to be within the narrative. We're not going to be walking around with like spikes on our shoulders and like neon lights and stuff. But I still think there's ways to make you look kind of cool and still fit within the narrative, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Like, I actually picked up Destiny the other day just to see what it was all about.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like on that place where everyone is, I can't remember what it's called, and like I'm just there in like really plain clothes, and you see all of these other guys just like rocking really crazy outfits, and
Yeah.
I do believe like the Division needs something along those lines, but again, keep it in narrative as well.
Yeah, fair enough. I suppose and then that kind of leads slightly onto the third thing. I mean, obviously this is the third thing they're kind of spoken about. Again, there may well be more, but this kind of notion of feats. I mean, this is probably of the 3 things they spoke about, the thing that was least exciting for me. I suppose it depends on the way you play, but of course, feats are again the sort of in-game achievements, right? They can reward you with patches, which sounds cool because of course it means again it's another way to sort of show off stuff you've done or stuff you've got. But what do you think? I mean, like achievements for you guys. I'll start with you, Binary. Like, how do you think? Is that something you think that will keep you playing, or would like kind of keep you coming back, or is that something you just like you'll gloss over?
I'll gloss over because I play on Xbox.
Yeah.
Xbox is it's always my main, so I just go with my my achievements from Xbox. That's sort of how I do my. So I'm not really too fussed. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Fair play.
Just give me my 1,000 gamer score for completing all the little side things, and I'm happy.
Yeah. That's fair.
I think I prefer the vanity over the feats themselves, really. I think.
Yeah. Really agree. What about you, Taylor?
Yeah, I'm pretty similar with Binary. If like it's only going to be a small, slight change, then is it really going to force somebody to go out and do a whole lot of work just to get something that's not really noticeable, unless they do something crazy with vanity?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I suppose if they tied in like you had a cool vanity set and then you had a load of patches that kind of made it look cool, maybe it would be worth it. But yeah, I definitely agree. But I mean, yeah, so that's kind of like a very brief summary to anyone that kind of like might have sort of tuned out for a while and is wondering, what 1.7 is. From what we've been publicly told, they're kind of like that's sort of a top level of what we know right now. So I'm assuming that's kind of the stuff that you guys will test at the ETF next week and whatnot. But that then leads me on to the next topic, which is what else do we want to see? Because this is kind of the important point. There is, well, we've been told from Julian Garrity and from the team, there's not going to be any there won't be any paid content. There won't be any substantial content increases. So, there won't be a map expansion. There won't be heavy story changes or, things like that. So, but I think it's important to realize that there's a lot of potential, like, despite all the kind of negativity that may surround it, there's a lot of potential in the Division from things that already exist, things that can be repurposed, things that wouldn't necessarily require huge overhauls or huge amounts of new content. There's a lot of stuff that you can kind of work within what already exists to create some really interesting experiences. I mean, there's a couple that we'll touch on very soon. I mean, survival is obviously probably the biggest one to like dip into. But before we go there, before we start talking about that stuff, this is a contentious topic. I'm going to start with you, Taylor, on this one. But gear score. Do you think we need a gear score increase?
Whether it's a gear score increase or not, I think we need something to grind for and to sort of refresh it a little bit, because there is times you log on, you think, well, I've already got the gear set I'm comfortable with, it's already min-maxed, so what's the point in me doing anything different to try and get something different,
Yeah.
If it is a gear score increase, then maybe give us the option to recalibrate the gear that we already have into that higher gear score.
Yeah, so sort of like an infusion mechanic to kind of like bring it up, so you don't have to. So it's not like you're completely grinding from the start to finish, but it's more like you're a means to kind of like upgrade what you have to Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because when we had 229 to 256, it was pretty much scrap everything 229 that we had worked hard for to then do it all again. I mean, it's not fun for anyone, is it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I mean, again, I think it definitely depends on sort of like some of the games you played. I mean, as someone that used to play, I've said this a few times before, but as someone that used to play World of Warcraft, I was very used to the idea of, you grind for your raid gear, you get your raid gear, you're happy with your gear, a new expansion comes out, and your gear suddenly becomes useless, and you start again. So I'm used to that cycle, but I definitely agree that I think the problem that Division had, and we'll touch on this a little bit more in a minute. But it's more so, you know, the cadence in which you had to kind of refresh your gear. But before we do that, like Binary, what do you think? Do you feel like we're in need of a gear score increase?
Yeah, I think so. I like this. I like the idea of a gear score increase, or even a couple of gear score increases. The problem I have with the gear score increases is the amount of time it takes to upgrade fully to the next gear score. You know, when it was 229 to 256, I probably only took about 5 hours to fully get my entire gear score up, and for me that's just not enough of a grind.
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, I could absolutely happy for a new gear score to come out. I just wish they would sort of work on a mechanic where almost, I'd hate going to the reference, but the Destiny where you have those singular level each gear piece that you get, so you can grind it out multiple times. So you went from 256 to 278, but you went incremental by 1 or by 2 to that point.
Yeah.
I think it would be quite a nice mechanic, so you're not instantly jumping up.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I think it's definitely, you know, I appreciate there may be some people that are, you know, watching and they're like, you know, I worked hard for my gear, I don't want to lose it all over again. And I definitely think the one problem the Division had, and probably what made people so kind of anti gear score increase all the time, was because if you look at like a lot of other games, you look at Destiny, for example, you know, there was a bigger gap between each content. So for example, you know, Destiny 1 would come out and it was a good few months before the next update, then there was a good like 5 months before the following one, then like a year before the next one. So anytime you would hit like a cap, it would be quite a long time before everything you'd worked for became useless, right? Whereas Division, you know, Division came out a month later, we had the first expansion, a month after that we had the next one, and it was so, like, a lot of people, especially, you know, if they didn't have the time to play as much as, you know, some other people did, if they had, like, you know, they had to kind of go to work and, you know, got families and stuff, then I think some people found that by the time the new update came out, they'd only just hit the gear score cap, right? And that's probably where the frustration came from.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree, because I think, you know, if I look back at like my time playing the Division, you know, I've mentioned this before, but the Last Stand is the expansion that I played the least, and it's not because I don't like Last Stand. I mean, it's definitely not my favourite mode, but it's not because I don't like it. It's more the fact that I didn't have anything to grind for. You know, I went in, I played Last Stand for a bit, but I was like, well, now I don't need to get a new gear set. My gear set is still functional.
Yeah, no.
What I'm actually doing,
with
right?
you on that one.
So
yeah, no.
Yeah, so I definitely, you know, in a game like this, I mean, it's all about grinding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about the loot.
And
Yes.
Just going back onto Last Stand, like, I felt exactly the same as you. You go in, you play it, you cap a couple of points, kill a few players, but you're not being rewarded with anything different, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's probably why like Survival was so good for me. I mean, like Survival, previous expansion, of course. I mean, like, it was great anyway because I love the expansion itself, but also because there was a gear score increase associated with it. Even though Survival might not have been the most optimal way to gear up, because I enjoyed the mode, I played it a lot more, and I was just gearing up in the process. I was like, well, I'll just, even if I play a half an hour Survival match and I get like a few loot boxes, and I could have done it faster in the underground or something, I'm like, I'll do it anyway because I'm enjoying the mode. I'm playing it. It's keeping me playing, and I played Survival for a good long while, right? Obviously, I tuned out a little bit more recently, but I mean, I got a lot out of that. But yeah, definitely for Last Stand, there was never like, you know, I never played it for the loot. I was literally just like, I'm gonna play it and win a few matches, and then, you know, like, it didn't hold me as long. So no, for sure. So now we kind of already started dipping into Survival, so we may as well go there. This is people are probably going to say, I think the last time I said this, people were like, you sound like a broken record, so I do apologise, but it's like the thing that like right now, people might not have been doing it before, but right now everyone is asking for this. Survival is, right, it's a great mode. It is the best thing that's happened to in my opinion, it's the best thing that's happened to Division since it's come out. We know where you guys kind of stand on that. But
I do agree.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's one of the most unique things that have come to the Division, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I just feel like it has so much potential. It was of all the kind of, you know, through like Division's hardships and stuff, and when you had the 1.3 where a lot of the player base dropped off, and then they kind of did their 1.4 sort of change of life and whatnot. Survival is where a lot of people came back. I mean, that's where a lot of the kind of, you know, good reviews came out. There were a lot of like journalists and stuff that jumped back on, and they were like, this is what we kind of wanted the experience to be. But I was still always very much in the mind that Survival was, you know, as it exists, is great, and I would never want to change the existing experience for anyone. But I do believe that if they want to, especially now we're in a position where, you know, it looks like the content we're going to be getting is going to be quite limited, right? We're not going to be, because we know we're not getting huge content expansions, we're going to need some stuff that's going to keep us busy. right? And we know where we're going with this, but survival is a candidate for battle royale. And I know, you guys have obviously been, in fact, both of you have been playing a lot of PlayerUnknown's battle royale recently, right?
I have indeed.
Or battleground, should I say?
A lot.
Sucking at it, but yeah.
But see, that's the part of battleground. That's the part of like battle royale, right? It's the sort of the learning process. But I mean, I'll like, what do you think? I mean, do you think survival would definitely benefit from, or just division in general will benefit from a battle royale? Like, Binary, what do you think first?
Well, it's funny because I've been on 3 other shows in the last week talking about.
I think we spoke about it on Engage, didn't we?
We did, but then Sirep Radio have done it, and then obviously it's Stolen Signal Radio where we had the call in. We talked about it for a while. I think it would be an absolutely fantastic mode for the division. I think that the challenge between the division and what the division has regarding that mode is its complexity in the gear and the weapons, and obviously what contributes and also makes the division what it is. Right? Is this like complete cluster of numbers coming out of Einstein's brain? So, if you take Battlegrounds, right, it's simple in its approach. Right, you have a weapon, you have gear, and you go and shoot things. For it to work in the division, this is just obviously my view, is they would have to literally strip back things like weapon talents, gear set talents, or gear talents to make it viable. Otherwise, it's just going to it would become very complicated and could be very unbalanced very quickly. And that's where the beauty of battle royale games work, because they are simple in their approach. So I think it would be an absolute fantastic addition if they could strip back some of the complexities that Division has around some of its mechanics. The whole style of going and crafting and getting your gear, absolutely everything. And you add some mechanics like there's some floating around, like a big storm coming around that's closing you into the center of the dark zone, all this type of stuff. I would be hooked. I think I would absolutely be hooked.
What about you, Taylor?
I've got to agree. And there is it pretty much, it's like a stage there, and it needs to be used, and I really think survival could be used for that, definitely. There is obviously a few worries, like Binary said, about like weapon talents and stuff, but then they also, when people talk about Last Stand, they don't talk about how good normalization is now, and I think making another use for that could work well within like a battle royale type game mode within survival.
I completely agree. I mean, you definitely need, because one of the things again, for anyone that hasn't necessarily played battle royale style games, whether it be H1Z1, Battlegrounds, or ARM or anything like that, then one of the most important things is that there will be imbalanced fights. There may be a guy that's only found a pistol versus a guy that's found an assault rifle, but fundamentally, if you both pick up the same gun, the same assault rifle, you know that it's down to player skill. You're not going to win because one person's got better gear. Well, unless they've got better armor, but generally speaking, you're going to win based on skill. And I think that I completely agree though that survival is definitely, as it exists right now, is very complex, but that's what makes it the perfect candidate for something like this. I mean, if we look to like 1.7 and we know, we say, okay, we accept that you can't make anything huge, or you can't suddenly give us new content. I mean, essentially, to turn survival into battle royale, you're actually taking stuff out, stripping it out. So I mean, surely that, again, I know development's not as simple as just, hey, remove and press the create button, but I mean, you fundamentally want, you use the storm as your existing circle to force you in. I feel like we would need to, I definitely feel, and this is actually kind of a topic that I was going to work in later, but we might as well talk about it now. I think we've got to a point now in Division where I appreciate, throughout all the expansion, they've always had this interesting way of trying to work like an NPC or PvE angle into everything, even if it's PvP, right? And I think, to a certain extent it works sometimes. I mean, I can appreciate Last Stand is what, I mean, I always jokingly say Last Stand is not a PvP mode because you don't actually have to PvP, but I think we're kind of getting to a point, again, especially if they want to keep the people engaged, where they really need to start listening to people. And I feel like modes like this, they need to stop thinking that you have to shoehorn PvE into everything.
Absolutely.
So I think, again, if you're going to have something like Battle Royale, I mean, clearly it would be a playlist. I mean, survival works on a playlist anyway, right? So we're not trying to take survival away from anyone. It could still exist as it is. But if you add a playlist, I think it needs to be, you strip back completely. I think we're in a position where we should lose safe rooms, because I don't think you shouldn't have a safe place you can go in to loot and stuff. You need to just be like out in the wild the whole time. I think you lose NPCs altogether. I think you then have, you need to force it so you have only one team or only one person can extract So you force those fights. I think the only NPC that I would be happy for them to leave in, because they're just so good, would be the hunters. And again,
yeah,
you
we
could
were
then
talking about that. Leaving the hunters. So the mechanics. So we were talking about this. There were about 12 people in this conversation, and the best strategy we came up with was everyone's starting on the map, but you only have one extraction, and that one extraction only becomes available. It's from the center of the map, say Byron Park.
Yeah.
And it only becomes available. The flare only becomes available once you are the only single person left or the only team left.
Mm-hmm.
So it forces you to that specific environment anyway. But you could still have hunters, but they would be like the guardians of the actual dark zone ring. So when you entered into the dark zone from the light zone.
Oh yeah.
Because the worst thing you want to do is if you get to the center and then obviously you go to extract, and that's where the hunters come in, and then you die.
Yeah. And then especially if you're trying to fight with other people, yeah, that's true. I suppose the other thing you could do with them as well is you could even, if you want to flip it on its head, you could make it so the hunters are effectively the circle. So with the storm, the hunters kind of come in with the storm.
Oh, we did talk. Yeah, that's nice. A good one.
Yeah. So then suddenly you get caught out in the storm, and it's like, bam, you're killed by a hunter.
Yeah, like you can't use something to keep regenerating your health. Like that's that tip in Battlegrounds at the moment. If you use an energy drink, you're kind of safe outside the zone for a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. And people need to learn to, like, if the zone is coming in, you run. Like, you don't stay there and loop for another 10 minutes. No, you run. Like, you're gonna, and that's that's definitely what's gonna happen. But no, I think we're definitely, it's just so, like, I feel they are definitely an interesting place though. I mean, had they done this when Survival came out and when Battlegrounds wasn't a thing, they probably would have had a huge impact. I feel like they're in a position now whereby even if they do it, it'll definitely be an exciting mode. It's something that I think it'll bring a lot of people back in. I think it'll interest a lot of people. It might not necessarily have the same effect that they would hope, because of course now Battlegrounds is so big and it's huge. It's like 2 million players right now. Plus, of course, the thing you need to factor in is that Survival is 25 people or 24.
24, yeah.
Yeah, versus Battlegrounds 100 people in lobby. I mean, I wouldn't worry about it too much, because I think about like typical engagements in VR anyway. You tend to be fighting with like 1 or 2 teams, so you never see all 100 people anyway. And if the circle's forcing you in, then you can definitely still get some enjoyment out of it. So I think I think there's no two ways about it. I think Survival would hugely benefit, and Division would hugely benefit from a mode like this. But I feel like I mean they are in an interesting position where it might like be a little bit too late to make the impact they were hoping, but I think they still need to do it.
One thing we do have to think about, is that there's not actually a mode or a game like that on consoles at the moment. So although there is on PC, maybe for the console players like myself and Binary, then there is that sort of small market there just to tide people over until these Battlegrounds do come over.
Yeah, no, I mean, actually, no, that's a huge market. Yeah, that's very. I mean, considering they've been saying like on Xbox that H1Z1 is going to be coming for like the past 2 years, and I mean, they confirmed that Battlegrounds is coming, but that might not be for another year. So yeah, no, that is completely true, and that's I mean, that would be huge. And I think it's just because I think the important thing people need to think about is like, to be realistic, if 1.7 and 1.8 are like the next 3 updates, it's very likely that once we finish 1.8, they're going to be like, that is your Division content done. Like, I mean, they're probably. I mean, I'm sure. I think we've all said this before, but they're probably, given the fact that Red Storm and Reflections are working on 1.7 and 8 and not like kind of the main massive team. I'm going to assume that's because Massive is working on something else and not just Avatar, aka probably Division 2, right? So
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So if that's happening, then it's gonna come a point where they just say, I mean, the same way with Destiny, we've just had Age of Triumph, and they're like, right, that is the last content you're having. Like, Destiny will still exist, but you're not getting anything else. So I think I think if they're gonna do that, and Division's gonna get to a point where it needs to like live itself, then they're going to need modes like this that people can just play themselves without having to worry about the developers updating stuff and whatnot. So yeah,
especially like they need to go careful with like what Destiny has done. Like, it's created such a massive hype at the end of a game.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Division really need to take a look at that and try and recreate that type of hype schedule around it, if that makes sense.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, definitely. So the other thing I want to talk about is I know this is a mode that there's always divide on. I've always been a big fan of the Underground, right? I know some people don't. I don't know where you guys sit on it.
I am a massive fan of Underground.
What about you, Binary?
I grinded to level 40 and I wouldn't do anything else until I got there.
Nice. Yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, again, Underground is like, I think the thing I liked about it personally was like whenever like a new gear score increase came out, Underground was just a quick and dirty way to gear up, right? It might not be like the best way, but that was good. But I think like now Underground has kind of fallen into this point where it's just like there's not as much value for it, right? So and I feel like there's more untapped potential there, right? They've got this this is something that, you know, you spoke about before, Binary. I've seen it kind of pop up on Reddit and stuff like that as well. But the notion of kind of comparing it to Diablo Greater Rifts. So just to kind of give people a quick summary, and to anyone that might not be a Diablo player, Greater Rifts are very similar to Underground in that you load into a rift and it's a randomly generated area. Like the Underground is randomly generated. There are random enemies, and you basically go through and they get progressively harder. The difference between Rifts and Greater Rifts is that Greater Rifts, the focus is on the challenge and not the loot, because loot doesn't drop throughout. So you play through and then you start off like an easy mode, you get to a harder mode. So in like Underground, it would be when you go through the lift, you get to a harder difficulty, and you play through until you get to like a progression completion. Then a boss comes out, defeat the boss, and then afterwards there's a vendor which gives you some of the best loot in the game. So to kind of liken that to Underground, I mean, you'd have a point where, you know, you were basically loaded the Underground, and instead of just saying, you know, choosing 2 directives or saying I want to go for 3 waves, you would literally just go into the Underground and just keep going until you either die or complete it. And, you know, and then the challenge factor there would be in that it would be about kind of doing it fast, doing it efficiently, and of course, you know, trying to make sure that you're actually geared enough to do some of the harder stuff. But it also then means it's a source of genuine endgame gear and stuff that you actually want to do, actually want to kind of like grind for. And I mean, that would then turn it into a, because I think one of the things the game is severely lacking is endgame content, right? We don't have raids. Yeah. We're never going to have raids, and incursions just don't cut it. So I mean, yeah, what do you guys think of like trying to sort of revamp Underground? Taylor, how about you first?
Yeah, actually, whilst you were describing the rifts, I actually had quite a cool thought, and that was the fact with loadouts coming very soon, which is in 1.6.1, they could be used in this revamped Underground if it was a thing, in the fact that you said that's randomly generated or randomly spawned enemies, like you never know what you're going to come across. So they could do that with different sort of actions like you get in the incursion, where it's like a ATV or something like that. You could then have to use your loadout, switch out to something that a bit like a complete final measure, for example, so that defuses it as soon as it lands on you. So it could like bring a lot of these updates sort of together and make you really, you know, play the game to its full extent.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I mean that could be really cool, because I mean, yeah, then you have to think more instead of just sort of, you know, going in, because it's gonna be random. You wouldn't necessarily be able to go in with like a one size fits all, right? You'd be like, let me take 3 or 4 of my loadouts in because I might need to swap to stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely an interesting thought. Binary, what do you think?
I always laugh when someone says they talk about rifts and greater rifts, because it's like the Division's working backwards. Because at the moment, what we have is normal standard rifts, right, where we roll through it and we get all the loot at the same time. But what we had back to the beginning was a greater rift where it was literally permadeath and you got the loot at the end.
That's true.
So this is what I always laugh when people compare it to that. And I think it would be brilliant, right? You go through each room, you get a harder enemy each time, and then you get to the end and you've got to go fight Joe Farah, right?
Yeah.
Or one of the other named bosses, and then you get your loot at the end. If you double the length, or you do 2 or 3 phases, like, you know, there's enough time there. 3 phases on a challenging, or if you even introduce legendary, right? You could, you know, so that's like a 45-minute dungeon right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the endgame content. Yeah, absolutely. Give it to me now.
One thing you could throw into that. One thing you could throw into that again is so we had the named gear pieces.
Yeah.
I kind of want them to go back to you've got to play this or this sort of area to get a certain piece. Like, imagine if they did that with the Underground, where if you got a full gear set, but it was only from that area and it was super rare, so it'd make make players grind for it.
I completely agree with you. It's funny, I was actually going to sort of like lead on to asking you guys that exact thing, because that's also something that kind of often brings up kind of a point of contention. And again, I can appreciate there are 2 distinctly different ways to play the Division. You know, if you've got a busy life, you've got a family, you know, you don't necessarily have the time to grind all day, then I appreciate you want to be able to jump in, do something for a couple of hours and get something out of it, which is fair enough. but I am definitely a strong believer in you should have certain things tied to certain activities, because the problem that I find is that, you know, then we're now in a position where, I mean, Destiny did it to a certain extent, but we're now in a position in Division where everything comes from everywhere, so you don't need to do anything. You do the thing that you like the best, and in one way you could say, oh, well, that's good because it means I can play what I enjoy. Yes, fair enough, but it also means that then I have no reason to go and do anything else. Like, the new Incursion came out, I played through it once. I have no intention of playing it again, because why am I going to bother? Like, why would I do an Incursion which could take me, you know, 30 minutes or an hour, depending on how you want to play it, versus diving into something that I can do super quickly and get the same gear. And I mean, you know, and it's something that's present in a lot of things. I mean, even in Destiny, where they're giving you a lot of loot from a lot of places, you still have to do the raids to get the raid gear. In World of Warcraft, you still have to kind of do PvP to get the PvP gear, or do raids to get the raid gear. And I think Division needs that, because again, otherwise you get this weird place where there's this huge map with so much stuff to do. I mean, imagine if 1.7 comes out and it's like you can do seasons, or you can do feats, or you can do underground, or you can do this to get the same gear. And then people are like, all right, well, maybe I'm not going to bother playing seasons because I don't need to. Maybe I won't bother going for feats because I don't need to. They're almost shooting themselves in the foot by making it so you don't have to. But I do feel like the only way to truly make that work is that, because they've always had a problem balancing gear sets, right? I feel like the way, I mean, this is probably a discussion for another time because I don't want to kind of go down the sort of rabbit hole too deep. But I mean, the gear sets have always been focused, like, the gear sets that have always caused problems are the ones that basically just give you flat power boost, right? If it's like this gear set is X more damage versus a gear set that's like an interesting way to play, like I'd always wish that gear sets were much more focused. Like, if you equip it, you can play a slightly different way, or you get access to like an ability that you couldn't necessarily normally use. And it's not necessarily like a powerful ability, but it's just like a different way to play. I think if gear sets were more like that, then probably. But yeah, I definitely agree that I feel like they should go back to, and even if they don't necessarily undo the whole system, like make it so that everything you can get now, you can still get from everywhere. But maybe if they're going to introduce anything new in 1.7, just try and give us something like a reason to go to do an activity. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Something like a 5th and 6th gear piece that you can only get from doing certain feats, or
exactly.
Or seasons, or something.
Yeah. I mean, when go on.
I was just going to say that's like, if they change one little thing, it might be it might be so easy for them to do, but it might like introduce a whole different thing to the Division, like that 6th gear piece that could, completely change the way you play. Yeah,
I mean, like, to a certain extent we got that in when they introduced like exotics, right? Which I thought was really cool, because at least then it sent me to like certain missions. It probably wasn't the best implementation of it, because I didn't really enjoy fighting Laurie Barrett 50 times back to back, but it was a step in the right direction. That sort of thing. So I mean, even if they make it so that gear sets you can still get from everywhere, but you have like, maybe they just, because also if we know they're going to have limited content, maybe they don't have time to introduce like 3 new gear sets and balance them. But if they were to like throw in like an extra like 3 or 4 exotic items, and then just make it so that one exotic comes from like Battle Royale, one of it comes from like Underground Rifts, one of it comes from like, I don't know, Last Stand or something, then yeah. But
I definitely think that's a line they should look down, like a gear set per new sort of activity that you can only get from doing that.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And also hopefully like some cosmetics with it as well, because that would be nice. Speaking of Last Stand, I feel like, again, kind of go back to the topic we said about before, sort of them needing to like put away this notion of having to shoehorn PvE into stuff. Do you think they should also offer people a playlist where it's just a standard 6v6, lose the NPCs, just players versus players?
I have that written down. Yes.
Oh yes.
14D. Team
nice.
Deathmatch.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's like some perfect locations, like the bus shelters, the underground bus shelters. Like the old Falcon Lost Room.
Oh yeah, the underground bus shelter was amazing. I like that area.
Yeah. Usually you get sent down there for HVTs usually, but it'd be absolutely incredible for a 4v or an 8v8, something like that. Byron Parker's an 8v8, just anywhere like that.
What about the
so many great locations?
The bank in the underground. That was literally my favourite room.
Yeah, you very rarely see the bank, right? Like, I think, in fact, I was playing Underground like probably a few weeks back, and I saw it for like the first time. I was like, where did this come from? I've never seen this. But I definitely. And I mean, again, I think it's important to kind of keep reiterating to anyone watching that, like, we're not trying to like change the modes that they exist, right? Like Last Stand is still going to be there. If you want to do a PvE mode, then still play it. But in a mode where they can have playlists, I feel, because I think that's something that that's one of the things that Last Stand kind of, it sort of struck a chord with some people, but then also disgruntled others, because the PvP players, when they were like, oh yeah, finally we're going to get something where we can actually just go here and PvP, and then realise that half their team don't actually have to PvP, they're just off shooting NPCs, because you don't actually have to shoot people, right? I feel like they, you know, some people were a bit like, well, that wasn't the experience we wanted. So I think, again, you know, in a mode where you're trying to sort of give people everything, then yeah, I definitely think. But yeah, if they're going to do it, they have to go small maps, because the maps in Last Stand are ridiculous. Like, they're just too big.
Yeah, they are. And you know, and then you can start working into weekly resets, right? And you can add feats into those PvP environments, right? So 1 week it's only ARs, 1 week it's only SMGs, or you get more multiplier points or something like that.
Yeah.
For using that particular weapon, right?
Exactly.
There's so many combinations you can do, and they already have those mechanics already there, and it's just about sharing.
Exactly.
I was just gonna say, I actually tweeted the other day that like these next 2 updates could be used to literally unlock the potential behind the Division.
Precisely, yeah. I mean, just literally, just use what's already there, right? Just repurpose it a little bit, and you could turn it into, like, there's still so much you could do, and it'd be brilliant, yeah, for sure. So the last thing I want to touch on before we kind of, like, you know, start sort of wrapping things up, and this is actually something that kind of cropped up on Reddit. Also, a couple of people suggested it in my comments at times in the past, but this notion of a survival world tier. So basically, the idea is that it would always be like kind of a permadeath save, whereby for those people that wanted to do it, wouldn't be for everyone, but if you wanted to, you could effectively create a new character, and you would start in a more sort of survival style environment, to the point where you play through the game and everything you do is, you know, like, it's progression towards your character as you normally would. They probably need to streamline the experience so you don't do so many pointless, like, intel gathering missions or these random, like, upgrade missions. But if you do it, you know, it's like full on, like, if you're trying to play DayZ, and, you know, you might play for 4 hours, 5 hours, hey, even an entire day or two, but if you die, you're dead. You know, that's kind of it's a really extreme thing. It's not something that, like, everyone would enjoy. But what do you guys think, Binary? Is that sort of something that you would play, or?
Yeah, I'm a big fan, actually. I play Dark Souls, so yeah, I'm used to dying a lot. Yeah, I think it'd be fantastic, actually.
Yeah.
You know, to start off. I'm not sure about. I don't think I'd want to do the 1 to 30 over again. I'm not sure unless they streamlined how that worked.
Yeah.
Because that could be pretty brutal. But something where it is like a complete. Actually, probably the 1 to 30 grind would be pretty good. But yeah, anything like that would be great. If you could make it so that I'm not sure about no infection, but definitely cold actually affected you.
Yeah.
All the different things that actually made you hurt, so you had to be a little bit more strategic about what you did and how you played, because the way you just walk around, right, and then pop kill a few NPCs and that's it. I definitely feel like you need more threat. If you could have more threat on your existence in the game mode, would be fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. What about you, Taylor?
Yeah, I used to play DayZ a lot, and when you compared it to it, it literally like brought back so many nostalgic memories of like spending pretty much a whole day sat behind my computer trying to get like this one gun just so I could feel powerful. I would literally do anything for that feeling in the Division. And I remember watching the first E3 trailer where they go into the police station, open up the crate, and that's that like shiny gun. Like, if we had that feeling in the Division, then I would probably kiss the developers on the lips.
Amazing, yeah. Fair enough. Well, yeah. So there's definitely some interesting things we've spoken about. I think for everyone watching, again, share. If you guys have got any additional ideas, share them down below. I will be, again, even though I'll be attending, these guys will be, so there will definitely be a voice for you. I'll send this video to the dev team anyway, so they get a chance to check it out. So if you guys have anything you want to share, then by all means drop it down below. But last sort of like things for you guys, obviously, heading off to the ETF. Are there any kind of, obviously we're going to try and discuss everything, but is there any sort of main agendas you guys want to push? Like, if you can kind of like grab one thing, or like go to them and they were like, we can do one thing for you, what would it be? Binary, how about you first?
Oh no, don't go to me first. That's
Well, I'm so glad it's you first.
Alright, there's two things. So one would be the rogue mechanic. I have a number of different ideas around how the rogue mechanic works in the Dark Zone.
Okay.
It was always meant to be a hard choice or a risk and reward. I don't think it was ever quite achieved. So I've got to rework around that. But that will take me 10 minutes to go through, though. That's how detailed, but we'll save it. And then the other one, it's just this rotation of, this weekly reset, and we've already touched on it. This revamp of weekly missions, bring challenging mode to like more missions, and bring legendary to more missions. Whether you only make it like one legendary mission a week, but different missions, not the same 3. Stuff like that just sort of adds. You're not adding more content, but you're just changing the environment you're playing in. and make it more limited, so that you have something to play every week, because each week's a and then it doesn't matter if you're only playing it for 2 hours or you're playing it for 8. You know, you've always got something every week to go back to.
Yeah, for sure. Fair. Taylor?
Yeah, very similar. Something that will make me like refresh the experience for me. Like, we've all done 1 to 30, we've all done Last Stand, we've all done Survival, we've all done Underground, yada yada yada. But, like, something that makes me come on and go, oh, this is today's challenge, I've got to make sure I do that before I head off to bed, and it resets. Or you know, as much as people hated the grind to get Lorraine Barrett's chest or whatever, like, we definitely need something that makes us do a certain area or certain mission to then be rewarded. And I think getting the rewards right is probably the biggest thing they could do.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
There is one thing.
What's that?
Give me a drone.
Oh,
oh yes, yeah, that was skill. I remember that. That was I would love that.
I was actually going to say, although they said no map expansions, technically Brooklyn wouldn't be an expansion. It's already there.
True, yeah.
Give us a game mode over there.
Yeah. That's maybe if they do the 6v6 maps, they can just like send us back over there. That'd be kind of cool. I imagine maybe like the police station, like up and down floors. That could be kind of cool.
Imagine a challenging police station.
Ooh, yeah, that could be fun. That could be fun. Fair enough. All right, well, that's that. I'm gonna wrap it up there. So thank you very much to both of you for joining me. So those of you guys watching, you can find links to both their channels, Twitters, podcasts, everything that's relevant to these guys in the description box down below. Definitely check them out. As I say, they're going to be 2 of your voices over at the developers next week. So definitely follow them and stay up to date and whatnot. But thank you to you, to both of you for joining. Really appreciate your taking the time.
It's a real pleasure. It literally
Absolute
is.
Pleasure. Yeah.
And let's hope that 1.7 brings definitely brings some much needed improvement to the division and brings back kind of the game that we all like, know and love. So thank you everyone for watching, and I'll catch you guys next.